Travis.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. So, Travis, let's kick off with like the absolute first question. Like, what the heck is a fractional CMO?
Good question. So, a fractional CMO is the guy you hire to get executive level expertise in marketing at a fraction of the cost. They are different from an agency and from a consultant. They're doing the work,
Right.
and managing the team that's doing the work and building out the strategy.
Okay. So, let's do this then. Let's say there's a hypothetical. You can pick any kind of client, your own, someone else's, whatever. It's a hypothetical brand new engagement. Okay. It's going to last for a year. So you're going to be the fractional CMO for a year at this brand new client. You've never worked with them before. Today's day one. Tell folks a little bit about you, first of all, and then let's talk about what you normally see or try to do in the first 90 days. Are there problems you typically always see? Are there things you just go looking for? Because even though the business says that, it's not there, it's really there, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does the first 90 days look like from the CMO's perspective?
Yeah. You want me to start with the intro?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm Travis Isaacson. Powder Days Marketing is the company. I help business owners get more powder days. I'm the guy that business owners call if they've been owning the marketing themselves, but they're ready to grow the company,
Right.
and they are ready to turn that over to somebody else and give someone else the marketing hat. They call me. I develop the strategic game plan and oversee the execution of it, and get them to where they need to be, which is a place where they can get more. If they're skiers, more actual powder days. If they are fishermen, more days on the stream or on the lake or whatever their thing is, right?
Right.
First handful of half dozen or so of my clients were friends, and I noticed that they were in the grind. They're doing everything they can to grow their company, but they felt stuck. They didn't know what to do next in terms of marketing, and I was able to come in and help them figure that out and stop wasting money on the wrong stuff and double down on the right stuff and grow their companies. And I've been doing that now for 6 years, and it's a riot.
So what do the first 90 days look like typically?
The first 90 days are really interesting because there are two balancing acts that are at play. One is I'm learning, I'm listening to customers and employees. I'm looking at the data, qualitative, quantitative, all of it. And at the same time, I'm discovering insights um, that maybe only an outsider would see. It's a balancing act because I need to be a sponge, but not, and also bring in this fresh perspective, but not necessarily act on every little thing that I see in the moment. The other balancing act is strategic planning versus quick wins.
Right.
There's always a desire to get in and get stuff done right away, and some of that is needed. But if we jump straight in and just act, then we are just like any other employee, and we're just pushing buttons and turning knobs. And the balancing act then is to develop this long-term game plan while taking advantage of quick wins along the way.
All right, good stuff. Hey, Keith, how are you?
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Keith, so tell folks a little bit about you, and I guess the same question, right? Brand new engagement, today's day one, you're sort of stepping into this new client. What's the first 3 months going to look like?
Sure. Building on that, it's that balance of quick wins and a strategic approach. So, my background is in strategic marketing. I got my training at IBM. I've worked for Apple, worked for a number of other tech companies over the years. And my specialty is really content and thought leadership. And so I run Publio, and we have Publio Studio where we invite executives to come in and turn their ideas into thought leadership and content for sharing. And that's kind of the pointy tip of the spear. What you really want to do on your first 90 days is connect the plan that you're developing to the the metrics of the business and the business plan. And so, what is the revenue? What is the revenue growth rate? What are the other KPIs that the CEO is looking at? What are the ideas that they have for the business, and how can you translate that into um, a marketing calendar and a, a content calendar? What vendors do they have? Vendor review, and so in the discovery phase of that 90 days, you really want to deliver results, solve some significant problems,
Right.
and then at the same time, be working with the executive team on these more strategic kind of KPI driven, where we take in the business.
Okay, then let's flip it around a bit. All right. So you're not the fractional CMO at this client. You're the CEO. Right. You had to convince somebody, probably a board or investors or management team or your alter ego, to allocate spend and bring in the company's first ever fractional CMO. Okay. How are you going to get like maximum value out of that person for the next 12 months that you've got them there? What should you be doing, or what should you stop doing? Probably, if you were trying to run marketing, you should stop trying to run marketing, as an example, right? Like, how are you going to get maximum value or not waste the money? Keith?
Well, I think that the first thing that you want to do is look at that person as a partner. And so you want to hire carefully, and you want to understand their management capability as well as their creative capability. And that's one of the things that makes the CMO very unique, is that they wear an analytical hat and a creative hat. And so the goal in taking those two skill sets is to implement things that are going to really create change within the business.
Right.
So as the CEO, I want to make sure that that person's going to work with my team. And I've probably, as a CEO, been a pretty darn good salesperson. And I've got to be able to open up my mind and see how I can utilize this resource to create a brand. I may not have done that development, to put thought leadership out there, to be a front person as the CEO and have the support of that CMO. So it's really a relationship driven kind of a relationship that you want to build.
Okay, that's good. And Travis, what do you think? Let me put it another way, Travis. Let me invert it. You've worked with plenty of clients at this point. How do companies typically waste the money that they allocated for their fractional CMO?
That's a good question. So, one of the ways they waste the money is they don't let go of the reins, and that means that the CMO has to now spend part of their time
Right.
managing the relationship between the CEO and themselves, and just trying to convince him to let go. And that's a horrible waste. It's really unfortunate when that happens. The other is not giving them both the information and the tools that they need to win. I have sometimes had 30 days, where maybe even 60 days actually, where it took 30 to 60 days just to get the information that I needed or the access to the digital assets that I needed to really get the job done. And that's obviously a terrible waste. So those are probably the biggest things. Um, I kind of feel like walking into something like this, I feel like the lawyers from the where they just say, "Tell me everything. I don't care what it is. I don't care how bad it is. I need to know everything to be your lawyer." And similarly, as a fractional CMO, I need to know everything. I need to know what the budget is, what you've done before, what you don't want to do, what you want to do, who the players are, what their issues and strengths are, all of it.
And then, okay, so let's keep you in the CEO role for a second then, Travis, all right? But let's think about your marketing team. Like there might only be a few people there, mostly junior, mid-level folks. Maybe there's been some supervision on that. Maybe there's even been a manager, right? But there hasn't been anyone at the leadership level yet in charge of marketing. So the fractional CMO comes in, right? So you're the CEO. You're looking at this like your team. You're looking at this department. How are they going to be different? How's that team going to be different a year from now than it is today? Head count, the mix of
Yeah.
inside outside, skill sets, attitude, whatever.
The head count may be the same. It may be different. We
Yeah.
may find that we need to fire an agency and have another add another employee, or the reverse. But the biggest change you're going to see is assumptions have been challenged, and there's a new level, a new way of thinking about marketing in the business. Employees get in and they get so ingrained in what they do for that one company that they start to analyze every opportunity in terms of, oh, we can't do that because of this. Oh, we've tried that, so we shouldn't do that because of this. And there are constraints. And part of the role of a CEO, of a fractional CMO, is to come in and challenge those assumptions and those beliefs, and take the blinders off and ask the dumb questions. And they'll say sometimes, yeah, we can't do that because of this. But then it leads us down a path of a discussion around why and what could we do? How could we accomplish this? And always we find new ways of thinking about their business.
That's good. And Keith, what do you think? How's the team going to be different after a year of having a fractional CMO floating around?
Well, I think the two big changes. So, right, you come in and you're working on trying to keep the status quo and get some big
Right.
wins. Meanwhile, you're working on some really big changes. Two examples are you may be implementing a new CRM and marketing automation system, and that takes a long time, right? And so there's a technology management project going on. At the same time, you're probably working on your brand, right? You've brought a CMO in that's going to work with the senior team and change the story that this company tells, right? So you may be, for right now, competing on features and functions, and if you're a technology company, um, and you look the same as all the competitors, and you want to get to what's the emotional connection of your product to your customers, and how does that change their life? I've an example might be a financial accounting system provides certainty, right? So you want to build a brand around an ideal, and
Right.
that's a big change. So those are two of the kinds of things that as a CEO, you want to bring in somebody that can work with the senior team on those grand changes that are going to take the first year. And you've got to train people to not only tell the story, but to use the systems. So those are the kinds of things that I think you want to identify when you're hiring somebody to come on your team. And this is a fractional, I've been thinking about this in terms of very large companies versus trying to do this on a fractional basis, right? So you're probably bringing on your first salespeople. You've brought on your first salespeople. The CEO is starting to change their role, and now they're bringing somebody in to bring about strategic
Right.
change and get that team to work and perform. So there's setting the strategy and then managing the strategy, and you want somebody who can talk to you in the beginning about what that roadmap looks like.
Okay. So, Keith, I have a two-part for you. Actually, it's one part for you, and then you're going to get to do some stuff. So I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'll give you an opportunity. Since guests on this podcast are randomly paired, then you end up in a podcast with another fractional CMO who, like, you in all likelihood have never met, and you don't even really overlap much. So there's a chance to sort of like learn from each other. So I'm going to give you a chance to ask Travis any question you want. But while that's sort of formulating in the back of your head, Imagine that your friend comes to you, or your neighbor, and says, like, hey Keith, so I mean, I know you do something like high up in marketing, and it's like, and I know you're a fractional CMO, whatever that is. I'll Google it when I get home. But the reason I'm talking to you is that my kid just got hired as the most junior person in their first full-time job, the most junior person on a marketing team at a company, and tells me that the company is also in the same week bringing in a fractional CMO. So bringing in like the lowest person and the highest person, right? Like, do you have any advice for my kid? It's either just starting out in marketing, what to pay attention to and what to do, or even sort of like, since there's going to be a fractional CMO around for a year, anything they should know. And then you can ask Travis your like incredibly difficult question.
So, as far as advising my neighbor's kid, there's a lot of groundwork that has to be done, and if you want to make yourself
Right.
valuable, help that CMO do their job,
Yeah.
because you'll look good not only to the CMO but to the CEO and the other people on the team. Um, I would be trying to find assignments like do competitive research, really understand what the presence of this company is on the internet, uh, identify who our ideal customers are if that work hasn't been done, or expand on that work as the CMO gets their brain around the business. Um, Identify what the customer journey is, and uh, connect the that kind of research to the kind of content that we need to now put out on the internet, right? Because that's really what we're talking a lot of this job is creating the perspective from the customer's point of view, what this company's about. So helping to bring that about is a great program, and it involves a lot of research, and we love to work with hungry young people who want to learn.
Right. And a
Um,
question for Travis. A random, a fractional CMO that you just met in an elevator, for instance.
hey, Travis, nice to meet you.
Hey,
I would say, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on advertising, and I just met with a company that is spending $100,000 a month on advertising. How do you get them off the advertising train to start looking at some more strategic things like content marketing and thought leadership and video marketing, uh, to redeploy those assets?
yeah, great. I have a tool that I use where after I've gathered all of the quantitative and qualitative information that I need, I spit that out in the format of a customer journey, but it's a customer journey matrix that shows the different stages of the journey and then the channels that we use in those stages. And normally, once that is built, it's really easy to see what stages of the journey we're missing. And as a part of the overall strategy and some other stuff, they see that there are now gaps. They now see that there are gaps in their overall marketing playbook or game plan. And I've found that it's easy when I can show that to them visually rather than just tell them and try to convince them. So I have a customer journey matrix that I use, but other people may do other things.
So if I understand what you're saying, that when you get that overall picture of the customer journey, you see that advertising is a top of the funnel tool, and there may be some things we can do with uh, content and thought leadership and events to unstick things that are lower in the funnel, and so optimizing
Yeah.
that funnel is where you're
Yeah. And I think, yes, and I think one of the other things that would be exposed in that is they would see that advertising is only one channel. And we work in a world today where it's a multi-channel world. People are used to seeing a brand from multiple places, and then they want to dig into the details. Once they recognize that a brand exists, they want to dig into the details and see if these guys are really the experts. Do they actually know what they're talking about, or are they just running ads like everybody else? So at that point, for example, they would need to show that they have thought leadership, that they have content, they know what they're talking about. They have blog posts that answer their very specific questions, and so on and so forth. So that seeing the overview and everything mapped out in a matrix would help them see all of that. Exposes where the gaps are for sure.
Okay, and so Travis, I have a question for you, and then I'll let you ask Keith a question. So you were talking about earlier about you got started by helping friends with their small businesses, right? To like get their marketing sort of organized and professionalized and operationalized. Imagine this is completely like off the reservation, kind of like dumb question, and I get that. But imagine that someone comes to you and says, "Hey, Travis, like tomorrow I'm starting a company, and I'm super organized, and I'm looking out 15 years. So, and I know at some point I'm going to have to have a pretty robust marketing function, and someone's going to have to be in charge of that at least fractionally. What at every month I look at my business, what we've done, what we haven't done, what we're winning and losing at, and so on, and sort of the shape. At what point, when I look at my company, do I know it's time to bring in a fractional CMO?" And then you can ask Keith your question.
Okay. Well, I would say starting out, you need a second set of eyes on even just the basics of where you're starting. Whether it's a friend who's in marketing, a consultant, a fractional that you just pay for a half day's effort, you'll save yourself a lot of headache and hassle by starting out on day one with some marketing expertise from somebody else. Now, I think what you were asking more particularly was, when do you plan to bring in a fractional CMO? And that answer is probably, I mean, in terms of revenue, anything over $1 million in revenue, you probably have enough going on and enough margin to start to do that. Most of my clients are between 2 and 25 million in revenue. Another way to answer that is, when you get to a point where you're just trying marketing stuff and you're not sure what's working, you know that some stuff isn't working, but you don't know why, you have to get in. You have to get an expert in. You're at that point, you're gonna blow $30,000 on the next marketing thing that somebody pitches you on, and you're gonna be frustrated. And yeah, you got to catch that early.
Yeah, if you're looking at your marketing and it's just tactics and hacks, it's time to think about strategy and optimization.
Or if you're looking at marketing, I was going to say, and if you're looking at your marketing and everything is driven by the last sales guy that pitched you on something, yeah, you're not in a good place.
Yeah. And what's your question for Keith?
Keith, we both work with CEOs who have a ton of subject matter expertise up here. How do you get them how do you pull that out of them, extract that out of their brain, and turn it into meaty, juicy content that they can use throughout their entire customer journey?
Oh, Travis, I appreciate the setup. I
I'm curious.
I recently launched Publio Studio as a service for our fractional CMO program, and I interview people in a medium very similar to this, but instead of trying to get 1 million downloads of my podcast, or what we're trying to do is create content from those interviews. And I've built workflows using AI and cloud video tools to take the interviews and process them so that for the 5,000 people in our database or 50,000 people in our database, we're everywhere. That's the strategy, right? So that we talked about the omni-channel world that we're living in. If you take the recording of a conversation like this, there's probably 5 blog posts in this conversation alone. Each blog post can be then turned into a 30-second clip from this conversation, and those clips can be quickly shared on all channels and formatted in 3 or 4 different ways to meet the channel. And then I also recommend that content be shared with your trade association, right? Do something special for them. That where do you have a marketplace? Share that content with them because your associations are desperate for content. So it's
Mm,
the distribution is where the importance is in creating the content, and the interview medium combined with AI and the new cloud video technologies
mm,
make that I'm serious. Things that used to take me 40, 50, 60 hours, or we'd make a video and just post it and never do anything with it because it took too much time. We're now able to create multiple blog posts from an interview, multiple social media shares, and it's
mm.
all coordinated. So I love to get the CEO into the studio once a month. Hey, what's up? What's on your mind? Take those ideas out of your head, and then come back with drafts of things to say, here was the point you made. We've fleshed it out, and let's publish it. So and get it on the content calendar.
So so they don't have to do a lot of organizing all of their thoughts and writing out content, because that's my clients. They don't have time for that. They're trying to run a company, but they know all this stuff. But so you're saying you conduct the interview, and your expertise is to ask the questions to get them to share what they know, and then you put it into formats that work.
That's right. I started my career writing white papers and case studies and big events for trade shows, and the fireside chat and all those kinds of things. So I do come at it from a journalistic interviewing perspective, and then over the last 10 years, with HubSpot, and that's a really important thing, is connect it to your marketing automation and your CRM, so you see the people who watch it, they opt in, and you see them all the way through to a sale.
Mm.
So that but the CEO doesn't want to be talking or thinking about what should my white paper be, or which case study.
Right.
Uh, just let them talk about what they know.
Awesome. Okay, we definitely need to talk after this. I need I need to keep you in my quiver.
Well,
Cool.
speaking of talking to people, we'll start with Keith. Keith, who should reach out to you these days, and what's the preferred way for them to contact you?
So I work with CEOs from financial, technology, and most recently I've worked with a couple sustainable energy, EV charging kind of
Mhm.
applications. Um, and so if you're having uh, thoughts about adding to your team, supporting your sales team with a strong marketer, give me a call. And I also do point things in the studio. So if you have a white paper you'd like to write, or just need some video content, we can service you that way as well.
Right on. And Travis, how about you? Who should be reaching out to you these days, and how?
Yeah, the business owner who is still wearing the marketing hat
Hmm.
and is frustrated because so many things did not work, and they need to grow and they want to grow. That's perfect. If they're ready to take their hands off the wheel and let someone else drive, and they are really excited and passionate about growing, that's exactly where I fit in. In terms of dollars, normally if they're doing again between $1 and $25 million in revenue, they tend to be a good candidate. I have some that are higher than that, but that's generally the range.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. These are great questions.
you're by episode 95, we're slowly zeroing in on like the right set of
You're
questions.
getting it down.
Jeez.
Crazy. All right. Thanks very much, guys, and thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Dean,
All right.
thank you. And Travis, nice to meet you.